On today's Locked On Thunder podcast, we're going to react to Media Day, including SGA talking about trade rumors. Plus, the Thunder establish their coaching staff and make a trade. Where does the Thunder roster sit, and what updates do we have from training camp? All of this and more coming up on today's Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I am your host, media member, and editor-in-chief over at thunderousintentions.com, Rylan Stiles. You can follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod and email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. On today's show, we will dive into the Oklahoma City Thunder making a trade to kick off training camp, plus Media Day highlights, a roster update, the coaching staff is set, what SGA said about trade rumors, and more. That is all coming up on today's Locked On Thunder podcast. Thank you so much for making this your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you talking Thunder basketball. For your second listen, check out Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Josh Lloyd getting you set for your draft before this season takes flight. Well, the Thunder made a trade with the Atlanta Hawks, shipping off Vit Krejci to the Atlanta Hawks for Mo Harkless and a second-round pick. Why did the Thunder make this trade? So Atlanta gets Vit Krejci, which is awesome for them. Atlanta, more importantly, though, dodges the luxury tax. So they dip their way out of the luxury tax. The Thunder send a guy who was on the chopping block anyway, as the Thunder need to create three roster spots. They need to waive three players from their active roster of NBA contracts. So the Thunder gain a second-round pick for basically $3 million because let's just say, of course, you're going to cut Vit Krejci anyway. He's owed $1.5 million. Mo Harkless is owed $4.5 million. You take on Mo Harkless, allowing the Hawks to dip under the luxury tax. You waive Mo Harkless. You were going to waive $1.5 million of that anyway, so you waive the $3 million and you get a second-round pick. So each team gets what they want. The Hawks want to avoid the luxury tax. The Thunder want to clear up our NBA contract, and in the process, they gain a pick, which is awesome for them. How the Thunder did this mechanically with the salary cap was they used Chet Holmgren's disabled player exception to take on Mo Harkless's money into that disabled player exception. Therefore, that's how it's going to be configured into the cap. And that's why they could trade a salary like this for Mo Harkless. So you're all caught up on the details of the trade. Now, the reaction to this trade is pretty simple. You think that, of course, Mo Harkless is going to be waived. As of right now, he has not shown up to training camp, and that's a decision that Mark said is between him, his representation, and Sam Presti. So we'll see what happens. But why is that so assumed that the Thunder are going to waive him? Well, number one, first and foremost, the roster crunch. It's pretty obvious that there's not enough roster spots on this team. They have to factually waive 3 NBA deals prior to October 17th or on October 17th to be in compliance with the NBA guidelines. So Mo Harkless is an easy one of those 3 NBA contracts. He's 29 years old at 6'7", 220. He's a poor three-point shooter, and he averaged last year 4 points, 2 rebounds, half of a steal as well last year. Half of an assist today as well last year. I think that he's only had 4 good seasons shooting the ball from 3 anyway. So this is a guy that can't shoot the ball from 3, does not really project to shoot the ball from 3 this year, is a solid defender, but really only defends wings. So that's not an area OKC struggles in. With the Thunder, you want them to improve their shooting and rim protection, just in general. And what Mo Harkless does, a subpar three-point shooter and a nice perimeter defender, the Thunder pretty much have a surplus of. I mean, Lu Dort is an excellent perimeter defender and is coming along and has still some potential in three-point shooting. Kenny Hustle, same thing, excellent defender, or at least good defender, and a solid enough three-point shooter, I think better than Mo Harkless from beyond the arc. And then Wiggins and Jalen Williams. I think that with Aaron Wiggins and Jalen Williams, those are 2 guys that are better than Mo Harkless right now. So that's 4 names deep right there of guys who do what Mo Harkless does, only at a better level. So while also being all younger than Mo Harkless at 29 years old. So that's kind of where he just does not fit anywhere into the equation for the Thunder. So as we head into training camp, we were looking for 3 names to waive for the Thunder because they need to waive those 3 NBA deals. We've already found out 2 of them. Before media day on Monday, Ty Jerome it was reported that he would not be with the team. He's not at training camp. He is at home waiting on the next steps, which will be him getting cut. Mo Harkless, we just laid out why we think that he's on the chopping block and why we think that he's going to get cut. That's 2 down. That's 2 of the 3 down. Who was the last one to go? I think right now that this is a tale of 2 players. I think that the 2 players in the hunt to lose their roster spot is Theo Maledon and Derek Favors. Maledon is owed $1.9 million. Derek Favors is owed $10 million. To me, that's the only 2 players really left on the chopping block of even being feasibly cut. I would be stunned if it's somebody other than Theo Maledon or Derek Favors. I just would be. I would be stunned if that happened. As a reminder, Eugene Omoruyi and Lindy Waters III do not factor into this. If they were to be waived, it would not get them any closer to having their roster set by October 17th. So, of these 2 options, I think that it's going to be Theo Maledon. I think that the $1.9 million is easy to cut. With Derek Favors, that $10 million can possibly be parlayed into a trade later on this year, or just simply stay on the roster all year long. It doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. And hearing Derek Favors talk and hearing Mark talk about Derek Favors on media day, I just think that he provides a lot off the floor that is going to be valuable for the Thunder in this season. And it's going to create value for itself in this season. Plus, it allows you to just have a guy who can eat up minutes. You think about baseball a lot. You think about how you hear about these bullpen arms that are just there to eat innings. They're not really there to be quality pitchers. They're just there to just take up innings in a blowout or take up innings in a game where you're not going to put your best lineup out there, whatever the case is. He can do that in the sense of eating minutes where instead of having Jalen Williams be forced to play in the fire from Arkansas, the Arkansas Jalen Williams J-Will, instead of having him being forced into the fire of the NBA whenever you don't think that he is ready for that, or if you don't think he's ready to take on that huge role or huge minute log, you can allow him to go to the blue, play with Cameron Woods, who's going to get him stellar defensively and also improve his offensive game. So work with Cameron Woods, and in the meantime, this is a big man that can fill that hole for you with Chet Holmgren being out, plus the money factor of it, plus the trade factor of it as a matching salary type at the deadline if you need it is always good. And I don't think that there's a role for Theo Maledon long-term in OKC. I think that it's just easier to waive him now than later. So that's just my prediction for what's going to happen. We know the 2. What's your prediction for the 1? Now, one topic on this roster crunch, roster situation that I don't know is being discussed enough. The Thunder have a 20-man roster, which is the maximum players you can carry in the NBA in this period of time. But it's a 20-man roster filled of NBA guys that, you think have a future in this league, or at least you can talk yourself into having a future in this league. That's not the case for a lot of teams. A lot of teams, their 18th, 19th, 20th guy aren't guys with NBA aspirations, really. They're guys that are just there to get their G League rights, and they're going to be shuffled down pretty soon. However, the problem for OKC is you have Ty Jerome not reporting. Let's just assume that Mo Harkless does not report either. So that's 2 guys down from 20. You have Chet Holmgren out for the season. He can't practice. And you have SGA hurt and not practicing. That is 4 players down. OKC is down to 16 players active at practice, which is less than the actual season if you're fully healthy in season. That is not great for training camp. Obviously, you're going to want camp bodies. You're going to want to be able to, work out with more guys. Now, on the plus side, the Thunder coaching staff has a lot of guys who can actually play. I mean, they can actually suit up and, go on runs with guys, and developmental guys like Eric Maynor are still there. Like he played in the league. He can get it done, right? So they have coaches who can fill in, so to say, and can do some drills or 3-on-3 work or 5-on-5 work with these guys. Mike Wilkes, I think, can go. I think that Eric Maynor, of course, can still go. DJ Wilson is in the video department now. He can go, I'm sure. There's guys... There's guys that I think can fill in for that, but it's just interesting that the Thunder only have 16 active bodies right now on their actual roster, despite having a max capacity roster in training camp. We'll see how that kind of goes in these, once you get into the grueling days, your third, fourth, fifth straight practice. We'll see how they balance their off days around that. And of course, they play an actual game in 5 days, 5 days away from playing an actual game. The OKC Thunder are against the Denver Nuggets. So we'll talk about that coming up. We're also going to talk about the media day standouts coming up. Yesterday, we did buy and sell of every player, a stock watch, if you will, for every single player on the roster, how we feel about them entering the season. Now let's go back and talk about the interview portion and how each player fared in these interviews. So we're going to get to all that and more coming up on today's Locked On Thunder podcast. But first, I want to tell you right now about our good friend over at Built Bar. I should say BetOnline. BetOnline is going to tell you a lot about what you can do with your betting needs. BetOnline is, of course, your number one source for football betting info this season. Find all of your latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every single game that you can find. Plus, BetOnline remains your continued source for all of your sports wagering information, from live betting and up-to-the-minute scores and every sport out there, including MLB, NBA, MMA, boxing, golf, all that fun stuff. So check out right now, betonline.net, and you can use your mobile device and learn more at betonline.net. Folks, it's this easy. You type in betonline.net, you go to sports. Yeah, you can even bet on the Thunder opening night game already. Already, you can bet on the Thunder opening night game against the Minnesota Timberwolves on the road. Whenever you scroll down and get to that game, the Thunder are 11.5-point underdogs on the road in Minnesota. So, how you feel about that game? You can bet on it at BetOnline. Go over there right now, the best betting source for your betting needs across every sport, betonline.net. We are back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I want to talk about some media day standouts, and the first thing is SGA. So Shai commented on his trade speculation and also on his injury. So real quickly, on the injury, he said he's getting better, heading in the right direction. Could not commit, of course, to a timeline by any means, but it sounded very optimistic. And you mix that with what we heard last week from Sam Presti about how Sam Presti basically said it's not a big deal, and then he backtracked it and realized, hey, we can't really say anything's not a big deal whenever it's a human body that's hurt. But everything points to he'll be pretty close to being back on opening day, or close to it, somewhere in that range of opening day, maybe missing 2-3 games to start, whatever the case is. He'll be back pretty soon. But on the trade factor, so media day, right? Media day set up where there's all these different stations for players to go to. They go into the actual arena floor, and that's where they shoot the content that you see on the scoreboard and on social media, taking pictures, videos, all that kind of cool stuff that you see throughout social media and the Jumbotron if you go to games, stuff like that. That's all done on the actual floor. The Paycom Center, the floor is taken out, and then it's just like the big push back the seats, everything inside the arena that you used to sing. And you come out from that room, there's a lot of stations to go to, interviews and things like that. So the main interview room is where I was, but he also went to a station where the Down to Dunk podcast was of The Athletic, and so did a exclusive interview with Andrew Schlecht. And in that interview, was asked about the trade speculation, gave a really good answer. Go listen to that podcast for his full answer, but the quotes were, I know what I signed up for. I believe in this team. And that's what you can run with if you're a Thunder fan. I know what I signed up for. I believe in this team. That is stuff that you really want to hear Shai say, and really want to hear him kind of dive into more to kind of equip you with ways to punch back against the trade Shai narrative and the fake reports and sources and everything else that people throw out the wall and see what sticks, right? So that's great. In the big interview room with us, with everyone, Shai was asked about it. He really just said basically here's where his feet are, right? Like, he doesn't pay attention to the media, doesn't pay attention to social media, stuff like that. He's worried about his game, how he can improve, and how he can get better. That's pretty much it. So standard answer in the media room, good answer with The Athletic. All in all, really good day. All in all, still, you're getting hit over the face with Coach Mark Thegna and Sam Presti and SGA, all telling you, hey, Shai's happy here. Shai wants to be here. Shai is excited. Shai, everything positive about Shai and the relationship with OKC, everyone involved is telling you that to your face. Shai, Mark, Sam, they're all telling you that. At some point, you have to believe the players and people involved versus sources. because the sources could be anything and mean anything. Folks, if you're talking to an NBA executive and they tell you, oh yeah, we like Shai, or oh yeah, we think Shai's a good player, how are you going to twist that to get clicks and retweets and likes? And folks, those clicks, those retweets and likes, they put your Twitter account in front of other people who will then follow you. And if they follow you, they'll then see your work more. And if they see your work more, they might click it. If they click it, they might like it. If they like it, they might click it again. Money, money, money. So even something as simple as a generated tweet, well, the tweet itself does not generate money. The ripple effects from it does. So this is, you're going to twist that in. The Mavericks love Shai, or the Raptors love Shai. When in reality, whoever you talk to, if you talk to anyone from the organization, just said he's a good player, which he factually is. But this is the price of having a great talent. It's the honor of having a great talent. Everyone wants them. Every beat writer, every executive, every organization, everyone wants Shai. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. That means he's a good player. It means you got a good asset. It means you got a good guy as the face of your franchise and leading you through this rebuild. Do you have to deal with some narratives and nonsense? Absolutely. But you'd much rather have the number one guy in your roster being somebody who is sought after than not. That's just the bottom line. So that's kind of the price of doing business, of having a really good player. Now, other things from Media Day, Trey Mann, Darius Bazley, Poku, they all stood out as being much bigger. Darius Bazley looks every bit of 220 that he claims that he is. The team listed him, I believe, at 216. But obviously we know that can all fluctuate day to day and stuff like that. But he looked huge, ready to go. He looked awesome. Trey Mann looked awesome as well. And again, I think the Poku looked good. Like, this was the first time with Poku where he, walked to the podium, he sits down, and you don't got to squint to convince yourself that he's, kind of put on muscle or put on anything. Like, you could tell right away that he has, even to whatever degree you want to say that he has. Josh Giddey said that he works out with Chip England 2 to 3 times a day. That's great. And he also cautioned fans, look, this is not going to happen overnight. Like, the jump shot isn't going to improve by 12% tomorrow, but every day that you work with him, every day that you feel good about your jump shot, of course, helps. Now, Lou Dort talked after practice today about how he's also working with Chip England. And then Ousmane Dieng was seen working with him as well after practice on free throws. So that was great to see, these guys that can really take the next step. Josh Giddey, Lou Dort, Ousmane Dieng. If they can become consistent and good shooters, then guess what? They take a evolution. They take a next step in their game. Lou Dort, speaking of him, back and ready to go, 100% healthy from that shoulder injury, shoulder surgery. I'm really excited to watch him play here in 5 days when the Thunder take the court for preseason. One of the biggest things for me from Media Day was actually how players reacted to Chet Holmgren's injury and getting to talk about Chet Holmgren whenever he was brought up. That was one of the biggest things for me from this Media Day period. Also, I think that Lou Dort and Kenny Hustle really showed you what the NBA is all about. Being a fan, just the storylines and just kind of the ethos of the NBA is all about as well. Plus, the Thunder made their coaching staff official. What changes should you know about and why do they matter? All that and more is coming up on today's Locked On Thunder podcast. We are back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I am your host, Rylan Stiles. You can follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Now, being at Media Day was awesome. It was a great experience. Getting there in person for the first time was awesome. And again, I cannot thank you guys enough for supporting the podcast, subscribing, everything else that goes along with that. Again, we're Locked On Thunder 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. And after every single game, we're here for you talking Thunder basketball. Subscribe for free on every podcasting platform, YouTube, all that good stuff. The biggest thing to me that stood out was how every player talked about Chet Holmgren's injury. I mean, SGA, Mark, Josh Giddey, literally every player talked about his mindset and how great it is, and how Josh Giddey raved about his mindset and how he knows that he's going to attack this rehab, come back better than ever. Poku talked about how he's got a long career ahead of him, and that he believes he's going to be back better. Of course, Hearing about how he has such high spirits and how he's still living in the gym, living in the weight room, scooting around, lifting guys up, smiling, laughing, putting the hours in the gym, even if it's just sitting there and watching other guys compete. Hearing that kind of stuff just reaffirms everything we heard about him in the pre-draft process. Everything in the pre-draft process that you heard from every outlet, every source, every person, and everything that we heard talking behind the scenes was about how dedicated Chet Holmgren is to being great, to living up to the hype, to being the best he can be. We saw the confidence from himself talking at ESPN right after the lottery. I want to be a 50, 40, 90 guy. But you also heard, hey, this guy literally eats, sleeps, breathes basketball. This guy watches film constantly. To the point where Mark told me at Media Day, whenever I asked him about, what things can you do, with the mental repetition and film room with Chet Holmgren and how Favors can impact that, how Muscala can impact that as two guys who've been around and can have seen things at the NBA level. Mark said, look, this guy's a film junkie. Like, he's way ahead of that curve. He talked about how, he's going to cut his own highlight reels, not highlight reels, film reels already to go and study. Like, he is that far progressed in it to where you're not having to hunt Chet Holmgren down to give him film. You're not having to wonder, is he really watching this? You're not having to give him a blank CD and ask him what he's studying. He makes something up. He wants to learn. He wants to put those hours in the film room. He wants to get better in that aspect. And so hearing that mindset get told by players who, I've talked to him since July or late June, it was awesome that he's already shown that in that capacity. I think that it really should give you that calmness. I think that Sam Presti's presser the day after the injury gave you that calmness as well, but the players talking about his mindset did a lot for me as well. Now, I just think that it's important to take a moment about Kenrich Williams and Lou Dort talking about their deals. Oftentimes we get kind of caught up in, these guys are multimillionaires, these guys are almost billionaires, these guys, are just freak athletes, God's gift to basketball, just athletically gifted, everything else. We get caught up in the first round picks and the first overall picks. Hearing the way that Kenny Hustle and Lou Dort talked about their contract extensions, talked about, signing these massive deals, it was really heartwarming, if you will. The way that they talked about how, sharing that moment with their families and how speechless they were and their reaction to it, how they just couldn't believe it, and sharing that moment with everybody around them, going into detail about it. Like, that was just really cool. And it really had to make you happy for them because these guys grinded and they took the unconventional path and easily these guys could just not be here right now in the NBA spotlight, much less making millions upon millions of dollars. I mean, how many undrafted guys and how many guys who were just thrown into deals get these type of contracts? I mean, it's that simple. This does not happen often. And you've got two on your very team. When Kenrich Williams was thrown into that Steven Adams trade, 99.999% of people said his career was over. He was a throw-in to get the salaries correct, and the Thunder could easily waive him because of the non-guarantees and every other mechanic in his contract that was over with. He was gone. Frank Jackson was gone. Zylan Sheehan was gone. Like, all those kind of guys were gone, and they were all just salary filler. Even after the first training camp and the first preseason game, the second preseason game, everyone had still wrote off Kenny Hustle. And yet here he sits, surviving year 4, now entering year 5 in the NBA with a shiny new multi-million-dollar contract after going undrafted. He didn't even have the same success as Lou Dort. He went undrafted and then bounced around to another team, fought and clawed his way there, and then earned this contract. Lou Dort went from being a projected first-round pick to falling out of the first round to, personally, I think that his representation just didn't want him drafted after that at that point and wanted to pick his team, picked the Thunder, and, had to grind, went through the blue season, got to the point where he had enough familiarity and confidence with Billy Donovan to him, putting him in the starting lineup in the regular season, and then in the bubble, of course, was awesome, playing in a Game 7, taking what would have been the game-winning shot in Game 7. Like, everything he did in his rookie year was awesome. We all saw it, his rookie season. It could have easily gone a different direction. Kenny Hustle's career easily could have gone a different direction. So to get to see them kind of celebrate and reach this point in their career was pretty cool. to hear them talk about for their own selves and kind of put that in a different perspective. With SGA getting a max deal, yeah, this is a guy picked in the top 15. Like it's kind of lost the nuance of it. Not to discredit anyone's journey, but these two journeys, of course, very special. The Thunder, of course, set their coaching staff. Chip England's hire was made official. Grant Gibbs, who was the head coach of the Blue last year, is now on the Thunder coaching staff, and Cameron Woods, who was an assistant last year and coached the Summer League team, is now the head coach of the G League Blue. Mark actually did a good job of explaining this move. So Cameron Woods last year was an assistant coach, and he was, a pioneer on the defensive side of the ball. And if you don't remember, for the part of the season that mattered, before the injuries, before the tanking, whatever you want to call it, the Thunder were still playing their guys, their group of guys. They were a top 10 defense, all thanks to Cameron Woods. He had his imprint all over that. He's awesome. He's one of the best young defensive minds in the NBA, and he's now going to get head coaching experience because he didn't have any of that. Grant Gibbs, he had the head coaching experience. Now he's going to get NBA experience because he had none of that. So this swap makes a ton of sense whenever it was laid out that way. It just kind of snap your fingers, light bulb type of moment of, oh yeah, that's why they're doing this situation here in OKC when flip-flopping these two coaches. So that's awesome for each Gibbs and for Woods. Excited for both of them this season. And excited, of course, for Chip England's impact on the Thunder. What were your biggest takeaways from Media Day? Plus, how do you feel about the roster? Who is that third domino to fall? Let me know on Twitter at Ryland_Styles. Let me know in the comment section down below on YouTube. And until tomorrow, be good and be good to one another.